So apparently the conservative nutjob Senator Josh Hawley wrote a kind of self-help book for men, which was reviewed here by Becca Rothfeld, a literary critic who I think is amazing at compassionately plumbing the depths of masculinity culture. I've talked about her on here before, and we're going to talk about this review. For practically as long as men have existed, they have been in crisis. Everything, it seems, threatens them with obsolescence. As far back as the 1660s, King Charles II warned English men that a new beverage called coffee would destroy their virility, and in the early 1900s, opponents of coeducation worried that featherbeds, dancing, and even reading might emasculate little boys. And then Rothfeld goes on and lists a bunch more examples of these historical panics about masculinity. She writes that Hawley's book is joining a tradition of books about how to be a man under a threatened masculinity, but that there's a paradox at the heart of this entire genre. These books have differences, but they all find themselves in the awkward position of claiming that masculinity is both unassailable and endangered, both natural enough to be obvious and fragile enough to require defense. And then she kind of dissects how this paradox makes the arguments in Hawley's book really unstable. She writes, "What is a man anyway?" Hawley's various answers are not very illuminating. Men are dependent, but also independent. Men do not blame someone or something else, such as society or the system, but men do apparently blame Epicurean liberalism for almost everything that ails them. Manhood is real and biological, but some of the central masculine values can be learned, and the venerable Greeks and Romans held that manhood was a vocation that each man must struggle to assume. Fundamentally, the paradox is, a man is a rugged individualist who figures things out for himself, but he also relies on how-to guides to teach him how to exist. And this puts men in an impossible position. No wonder so many men are in despair. They're tasked with being social yet solitary, victimized yet valorous. They're assured that their estate is natural, but cautioned that it is tenuous to the point of dissipation. They're instructed to forge their own paths, but also directed to an endless stream of gurus peddling weightlifting programs and diets of raw organ meat. And she talks about how Hawley says men need to have jobs, men need to support their families, but then he bemoans the fact that there are no masculine jobs left, and then he argues that men shouldn't work in caring professions where there are a lot of jobs. So it puts men in this completely impossible position. She writes, "If I believed in manliness, I would say that it is not very manly to seek out a father figure to hand you a script for adulthood. But I don't. So instead, I'll just say that the longing for a lifelong coach is gender-neutrally juvenile." Hawley's quest to obviate existential uncertainty is animated by a desire that seems to undergird much of contemporary conservatism, with its mania for conventions and guardrails, a desire for an eternal parent to tell you exactly when and how to clean your room.